Let's lock in. One of the fights I am extremely excited about this year is David Benavidez versus David Morrell. I'm probably more excited about that fight than some other people based on some haters that I've seen in the comment section. But I think it's a great fight, and I think it's a sign of things to come because whoever wins that fight, I believe is going to be a serious player at 175 moving forward. Now, one of David Morrell's former opponents, Sena Agbeko, has been implying, he's been doing interviews implying that David Morrell is on PEDs. And this isn't new because he did it immediately after his fight. But since David Morrell has agreed to fight David Benavidez, this guy, Sena Agbeko, has been making the rounds, interviewing on YouTube channels and stating his case that he believes, not saying he believes, but he is saying he believes. Like he's doing the hard imply, doing his best not to have legal ramifications come back to him, even going as far as to have disclaimers put up before people play what he has to say. But the point is, he is strongly implying that David Morrell is on PEDs. And even David Benavidez implied that David Morrell is on PEDs. And we're going to look at all of those things. But first, we're going to take a look at what happened to Agbeko when he fought David Morrell, and how David Morrell stopped him on Showtime's last boxing card.
With a left hand.
So you see he's in the corner, and David Morrell is just wailing on him. And Agbeko was just in a shell, holding himself and not returning fire, and so the fight got stopped. Now, immediately after the fight, excuse me, he went to that same playbook. He went to pretty much implying that David Morrell was on PEDs. We're going to take a look at it right now. So it's not like this is anything new. Here it is. We'll take a listen. And this video appears courtesy of Fight Hype. Subscribe to Fight Hype.
My only dissatisfaction with the whole process was, we both signed documents to be drug tested by WADA, and none of that happened. There was no testing by the commission before the fight and after the fight. And they said that, okay, they explicitly stated that, the commission was not required to do testing and that they chose not to do any testing for this fight. So, I really think that there's something up in that regard. But it is what it is, he was the better man tonight. I just wish that, I would have had it more rounds to, showcase my skill and show that, hey, I belong at the world level. But it is what it is. We'll bounce back. I may, consider a possible move to 160 because all
right. Well, anyway, you hear what he's saying. He's basically saying that, and I'll read what was written by Ron Goodall. He says, a year ago today at Fight Hype, Sena Agbeko spoke about his suspicions of that's David Morrell's suspicions that David Morrell being on performance enhancements and being set up on a bait and switch drug testing agreement, which you heard him say there, that he agreed to the drug testing and then the drug testing never happened. They never showed up to test he nor David Morrell. And here you have in one of the press conferences, David Benavidez brings that up. And as you see in the caption, it says, David Benavidez claims they were going to cancel the fight if there was no VADA testing for the fight with David Morrell. And let's listen to what David Benavidez had to say.
Now you want to talk about that? We're calling you. We're calling Luis de Cubas. And you want to say, next week. Okay, no. Fuck that. You want to talk about that?
Okay, guys.
I had to call PBC and tell them if we didn't take the VADA test that we're going to cancel the whole fucking fight. Because you guys didn't want to fucking test. Now we're drug testing. We wanted to fight you for the last fucking 3 years. But
guys, this is it. We need to finish this. We need to finish this media workout right now.
Well, You see, before all the chaos erupted, what David Benavidez was saying was he had to call PBC and threaten to cancel the fight if there wasn't any VADA testing. And of course, this warning from Agbeko was he said it immediately after the fight, and he's been making his rounds saying that he's very suspicious because the bait and switch was pulled on him. And then you see David Benavidez there saying, "Why did it take you so long to sign up for VADA testing?" and implying the same thing. Now, my take on it is I've always stated be good or be good at it. So if you continuously get busted for taking PEDs like Gerald Big Baby Miller, like Dillian White, like some of these other fighters in the game, then you need to stop. But if someone's never tested positive, even if you have all these flying suspicions around them, you don't have the evidence to support your allegation. And at this particular point in time, David Morrell hasn't tested positive for anything. So you can make these allegations, but you don't have a leg to stand on because he has no positive tests. So that means that if he is on PEDs, he's good at it because he's not getting busted. And of course, just because you don't get busted doesn't mean you're not on anything, but you can't accuse someone of something without having the actual evidence. And that is why this guy, Agbeko, is putting out all these disclaimers and making these strong implications that he believes that David Morrell is on PEDs without saying it factually because he doesn't want the legal ramifications of it. With all that being said, right, if this guy really suspected that David Morrell was on PEDs, he shouldn't have taken the fight. He should have pulled out of the fight. And again, I stated this with Ryan Garcia before his attorney even stated it. You can go back and look on the videos. There's this thing called assumption of risk. Now, if you knew going into the fight that you agreed to have VADA testing, WADA testing, or any type of drug testing, and no testing was done, a reasonable person would assume that because no testing was done, there's a possibility that my opponent may have been taking illegal substances. If you still agreed to walk in that ring and proceed with the fight, you assume the risk because you knew that there wasn't any drug testing, and you knew there was a possibility that you were fighting someone who was on PEDs. So you assume the risk anyway. And he says that, like, I should have, in one of the other interviews that I didn't show because I know I don't want to get flagged or anything, but he says, like, I should have stood my ground more. I should have said I'm not going to fight. Yeah, that's right. You see what David Benavidez said. David Benavidez said clearly, I'm not fighting if this testing isn't done. So salute to David Benavidez. He did the right thing. But what you can't do if you're this guy is you can't run around saying that David Morrell's on PEDs because no testing was done for your fight. You didn't force the issue. You didn't push the issue. And I don't know fighters walking around who, like, a lot of fighters aren't going to be walking around like, yo, test me, please. Test me, please. It's not the only fight in the history of boxing that didn't have any drug testing. Drug testing is something that one of the fighters or both of the fighters have to be adamant about and push and say they want it. And if they don't do that, then, you know, some fights go off without the drug testing. Now, in this case against David Morrell, Agbeko was the B side. So they gave him that B side treatment, and he never stood his ground. He was saying, like, even the week of the fight, he should have just put his foot down and said, if we don't get at least one test, I'm not fighting. And he's right. He should have done that. And if the testing is very important to you, then and it's in the contract as a condition of the fight being made, then stand on that and hold them to that. No one's going to look at you sideways if you're like, oh, well, you know, the fight's not happening because, yeah, I guarantee you if David Morrell doesn't take the drug test or he skips out on drug tests, when it comes to David Benavidez will have the guts to be like, I'm not fighting this dude. I got too much to lose to step in the ring against someone who's juiced up and can gain a lot from beating me. And if you're going to beat me, at least beat me on the up and up. And again, I close with be good or be good at it. So, you know, if you're bad, be good. If you're good at it, then no one will know because you're not tested positive for anything. At the end of the day, The boxing is a dirty game. We all know that these fighters take something to gain a competitive advantage. Sometimes it's legal, sometimes it's not. At the end of the day, when you step inside that ring and you fight, the result is the result. No excuses. Unless you are busted, unless someone is busted. Like if someone is busted for taking steroids or PEDs, HGH, SARMs, Trin, any of that stuff, if someone blatantly tests positive for those things and it's evident that it enhanced their performance, then there should be some penalty and some backlash. But in this case, David Morrell just beat the dude, and there's no evidence to show that he had anything in his system. Now, when this guy said there wasn't any VADA testing, my question is, they usually always test fighters immediately after the fight, the athletic commission. So was David Morrell tested immediately after their fight for PEDs, which I would believe he was, because that is the standard. Like immediately after a fight, every fighter must go and give their samples for it to be drug tested. If he passed those, then what is this guy running around talking about? It's like he's smearing David Morrell's name for nothing. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe. It's Caden. I'm out. Peace.